what is spelled out for this country?
Thank you. I think we need to appreciate that democracy, as per the Constitution, comes with a cost. Every other thing comes with a cost. And we also need to separate that from the monetization of politics. When you give examples of how much money was spent in Kololo, as you mentioned, I think that is an issue that needs to be addressed as a country. That if we are to have credible elections and deliver the dividends of democracy that our country needs, then we need to enforce the existing laws that outlaws the monetization of politics. And as a country, we are not short of these laws. We have the Election Act. I think my lawyers would you know, mention them better. We have these laws in place. What we should be asking ourselves now as voters, as leaders, is that what went wrong? Why are we not appreciating the existing laws that we have in every circumstances that we find ourselves into these election processes? And for me, I think that is more of an individual appreciation of what this game of politics and democracy is all about at individual level. Now, the other aspect that you're bringing about the value for money, I think we need, I hear my colleague economists bringing the aspect of the opportunity cost, the money, the economy, and the politics, and if all that. I think we need to appreciate that these leadership or democracy and the economy coexist. You cannot have the economy thriving without the leaders that will make decisions, that will provide policies, that will provide, you know, the leadership that the economy would love to see. I think he was talking about the signals that politics actually sends to the economy and all these aspects that actually if you don't have it, it even sends the worst, you know, signals to the economy. So for me, I think that the discussion we should be having is that if we are, and the way we are and our constitution to be a democratic nation, we should be discussing about how do we deliver that and how do we undergo the processes that will give us the leaders who can actually deliver the democracy that we want. For me, that should be the discussion. But I don't see as a country saying, let's leave this and take on, you know, leave politics and take on the economy. Yes, I'm aware of some countries that do not have elections, as my colleague says. Yeah, I mean, there are other ways that can be handled as well. But I think as a country, we have already found ourselves in, you know, that situation that we are a democratic country. We have to undertake elections after every other 5 years, and we have to plan for that. And we have a responsibility to then make sure that service delivery is also undertaken as per the needs of our people. So I think the discussion shouldn't be about either or, but more of how best can we actually deliver. I hear my colleagues about the competence, about the leaders that all these processes produces, about the electorates themselves. I think we should be in the position of one, which is one of the critical areas that we actually have to invest a bit more, is on the awareness and the civic education of all these processes that happens in the election.
Let me put a question to you. You talk about, let me start with the one you said. You talk about addressing the commercialization of politics. How much talking are we going to do? The president did the talking in Kololo that day. You have walked the streets of Kampala talking about corruption. At what point do we stop talking and start acting?
Ne enale munawebe manyi nti nno ebintu byaboononekako nti enguziko batudde tijeno Museveni eggwanga lyamugwako lyamubulako lyamuva mu ngalo naye tebalina kyakukola balina kumugamba nti muzeeyi eggwanga liganye babyogera mu ngero naye nga bamutuusiriza obubaka nti eggwanga likulemye kalo naye wa NRM naye embeera agiraba nti biganye bidemye.
The second one, you talk about service delivery. The cost of democracy, if we're to go back to 2011 or 2010 when people walked because the prices of food were steep, when we go to 2021 where inflation was in double digits, and you're saying we're in this, can't we change what we're doing for the betterment of this country? Or else, the example he gave of France, 20 million shillings per second, none of us here could be able to afford a meal if we went that way. Isn't there something we can change?
Two things from your question. One, walking the talk about corruption. You know, when we talk about corruption, we tend to point a finger to other people. And I remember our late speaker, Right Honorable Jacob Olanya, said that all of us here are corrupt. So the action of corruption is a shared responsibility. Those who give bribes should also start stopping to give the bribes. Those who take as well, and agencies and government agencies and all that. So I think for me corruption is a disease, is a pandemic. It's really a bad thing. It's really at the peak of it. And so to talk about corruption and how do we start acting and all that, I think as we talk here right now should be one of those actions and steps to start asking ourselves and start asking our communities and our citizens that corruption has eaten up our country, has eaten up the services, has done the worst anything can have ever happened to our country. Let us stop it and let all of us be responsible in our communities. Now, the question of the cost again and service delivery. To me, I think that as a country, we have processes. We identify the issues. We know we have health service gap. We know we don't have roads. We don't have electricity. We don't have education services to our people and all that. The discussion should be that it should be around the reprioritization of our needs. And if politics is one of them, then a discussion should start on how best do we still conduct these elections, but at a much more, lesser cost than the cost that we are looking at now. And one of the instances I'm seeing use of technology, for example, one of the things that my party NRM did for us to go and line up was to reduce on the cost. Because those days we would go and print the ballot papers, all these kind of things. So I think every other party, and hopefully also the general election, the Electoral Commission is also looking at how best do we leverage on the technology so that we reduce on the cost of elections, save that money, and put it into service delivery. So I think the discussion should be what are innovative measures, the initiatives, and all these aspects that we can employ to see how best we can still have democracy, but at a much lower cost.
Honorable Minister.
Because of two issues. One is
ekinyumira nti naba NRM embeera bagiraba obubbi obugenda maaso babulaba na buli ekitambula bakiraba ate boogera amazima ameerere nga bagagamba Gino Museveni yennyini abiwulire naye Gino Museveni yatawulira ate bano bamwesibako just lwa mbeera naye nabo ekituufu bakiraba.
That the understanding of our electorates about our roles as leaders, as members of parliament, is completely different from the constitutional role of a member of parliament. Our electorates understand that we are actually supposed to be providing them the services that government is supposed to provide. And because as a country we are still in that process of growth, that we may not have all the resources that we need to provide all the desired services. As members of parliament, we find ourselves trapped in that kind of scenario where they're calling you to build a school, to drill a borehole, to build a church, to pay school fees, to pay medical bills and all that. And that is why you see most of this attrition rate, I would call it, that most parliament, like I think it was 10th parliament, the data shows that at least 80% of members of parliament in every parliament loses the election. They lose election based on some of the high expectations of our electorates. How do we do that? You have to design mechanisms on how you're going to do your legislative role vis-a-vis your role to the constituency. Else you get trapped in the middle there. And the question of the implementation, or how do we reduce the issue of monetization of politics, of our politics, it's not so much about the law. We actually have the laws already in place. What needs to be done that the executive needs to help us with is the enforcement of that law. Just to make sure that there are mechanisms in place to ensure that the bribery, all these things that are happening needs to stop. People need to get arrested, and people got to be accountable to some of these things. But I mean, and also the voters, like I still go back, much as you're saying that civic education may not really do as much, but I think as a country, and our electoral commission needs to invest a bit more money into civic education than the materials, electoral materials and all that we have. Because if we go to a community that do not even understand what they expected of them as electorates, then we still have a long way to go. So for me, I think as a member of parliament, it's quite a huge responsibility on us as well. And so it's something that really needs to be, we need to engage a bit more on that, both with government, the electorates, and the leaders ourselves. One of the discussions that is coming, and I have to say this to my chairman of NRM, it is not true that the government is silent about what is happening. In fact, one of the few meetings that we have had, the few caucuses that we have had after these party structure elections, our party is actually coming out very strongly on how to stamp out monetization, money in politics. But look, he's laughing, and yet actually his party is even worse than mine, because they ask you hard cash. Okay. At least ours, the cash.
It is in kind. You carry got.
So anyway, something I think is going to be done. That I can confirm.
Lastly, before we take a break, it's almost a double-edged sword. That as soon as you come into parliament,
to elect a leader and to elect a president that would lead the country for the next 5 years. But that also shows you that, to me, it is actually the level of democracy that we have reached as a country, that anybody can actually go and pick a form to be a president. In the other context, you could also see that there's a discontent in the community, that they think that if that person cannot do it, why not me? And for me, it's a very positive thing in my view, that people are actually offering themselves to lead and to offer options and all that kind of stuff. As citizens, why they should be interested is that for communities to grow or to develop, there is need to focus on, people should be interested to know what happens in that leadership space. Because we've been discussing here scenarios where some people sit back, they don't vote, they don't want to know, they don't want to be a part of anything. So we actually have to applaud the over 20 or so people that have shown interest. And maybe we are going to see even more people showing interest in later elections to come. And so as the citizens of this country, we should be interested in the position of presidency.
A democratic system that works for us as a country, because we have been at this is the 7th cycle we're in. But how do we find something that works for the people? Because it seems like it's a ritual. We just get through it and then move on to the next 2031.
I don't know where you're coming from when you say it's a ritual, and at the same time you agree that we have a constitution that we all agree to, that elections should happen every 5 years.
Honorable, when anyone wants to hide behind something, it's either a policy or a constitution. What Ugandans want, like you have said, the people in Amolata, the tractors are seated, there's no rice being done, Tanzania is flooding our market with rice. What people want are basic things. Their children to go to school, jobs to be available, a health system that works. That's the minimum required.
Just the teachers have begun their strike.
No, teachers began their strike on Monday.
They include the teachers from Kanyareli.
This one just wants to include that. No, I think I think we are missing out something really in all this. People and leaders coexist. These are the people who elect the leaders, okay? And so as a people, we exactly know what we want. And one of the things we want is actually to elect leaders that can provide us what we want, in my view. And so the interest you are seeing in the leadership positions, I think my colleague was talking that in my party, we have about 2.5 million people who want to be leaders.
Million posts.
2.5 million positions in my party. And so...
Let me ask, you say, Honorable, that what the people want, the slogan for the next 5 years is protecting the gains. What gains? And what are you protecting? From who?
But Timothy, you need to agree that as a government, there are achievements that this government can talk about and can be seen. You cannot
16 to 18% performance of NDP3.
Let me tell you that every growth is a process, first of all. So even if NUP comes to, even a
slow process, progress is progress.
40 years?
I agree. Slow progress is progress.
Even if it is 100 years or 200 years like the American people, it's growth.
Have you ever heard of the word stunted growth?
Forget about these. Forget about these ones. So anyway, Timothy, back to the back to the issues. There is no way you are going to wash away the achievements that this government has done over the years. Okay? And there is no way you're going to say that, oh, what is there and what has not changed and all that. We need to appreciate that some work has been done. And a lot more work is ongoing, okay? And for me, that is about growth. Even if my colleague is saying stunted growth and all the same, that child will grow anyway, although maybe might grow slowly or something like that. So I think we need to appreciate that as a government, there are things that we look at. And if you say, what are we protecting, the gains and all that, Timothy, if you come from the region where I come from, and you say that there is nothing to protect, and you forget about talking about peace and stability, to protect that peace and stability, then you'll be deceiving yourself. Because it's true that for the last 20 years, I think, or so, as other people were peaceful enough to sleep in their homes and all that. My own people did not have that peace. And if NRM comes with the word protecting that peace, I don't see anything. And actually I appreciate that message. It's a very good message for some of us who appreciate that peace and stability.
Okay.
Were your people sleeping in their houses during Obote too?
I don't want us to go there. We shall have another discussion. We shall have another discussion on that. But I want to tell you that from 1986 to around 2005, my people were sleeping in the IDP camps. And that is why we appreciate that for the last 20 years, we are able to sleep in our homes, and so we are ready to vote and protect that peace and stability that we have had over the last 20 years. So it's not about for who and what is against. So if it is one thing that we are protecting is that peace and stability. And for who? For my people who have suffered that insecurity over the years. And so many other things that we can really assess. And I'm glad that, I'm sure that one of the panel here, we talked about the performance of the several NDPs that we've had over the years. My colleagues economists will tell you that our growth has been from some level to about 6% or something like that.
She has lost one guy. Mama Rice.
No, that will be worked on. So Timothy, that kind of questioning needs to be put in context, really. We can't wash away everything that the government has done.
No, we don't dispute that there is no achievement. No. We're just questioning the process and the progress of the achievement.
I think if you are fair to the government, you need to be fair to this government. First of all, you have a group of people that came here, and somebody did not even own a kilogram of soil. He has 10 square miles of land. Somebody who came not even with a pussycat or a dog goes to Rubona and grabs government cows and starts a farm. Those are mega achievements. Somebody who came with a son who was in Peace 3 and is now a CDF, supervising and overseeing abductions with impunity. To them,
I
that's an
expected
achievement.
the cynicism there. Let me come to the Honorable.
Thank you very much. For me, my parting shot would be that we need to acknowledge that development, be it social, political, economical, is a process. And we need to appreciate the far this country has come with all its challenges. And I think we need to take responsibilities as a country to make it better. Because all these lamentations and all that may not help much. What will help is as leaders or as a people at different levels to do everything we can at our own levels to make our country better so that all of us can live in it peacefully.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kale abyebyo abiba NRM bebo nabo balirabe eggwanga lyaffe livunze liweddewo balaba eggwanga nalyo ligenda lisaanawo olw'omuntu omu alifudde erirye alifudde eri abajjajjaabe nti bannayuganda balala tebalina mugabo mu ggwanga lyaffe lino. Ono ye Honorable Dr. Apia Agnes Atim Woman MP wa Amolata wa NRM. Ninaye government agiraba nti eganye omusajja atukulembera buli kimu nsimbi wano babyezi no wano babyeziri bamugamba ko mu magezi naye nga ate bamutya.